All right. Hey, this is Josh. I'm here with my client and actually now a moderator of Eating Skills, Luigi. And Luigi, there are a few reasons that I thought it'd be really cool to interview Luigi. Number one, he went from managing food almost entirely based on calories to managing it based on skills, managing it based on eating skills, which I know there's a lot of people out there who want to do. The other thing that's cool is that Luigi has like the really wide range of athletic pursuits. And I know sometimes people are like, well, can I really manage like this endurance training or the skill training or the strength training without counting macros? And Luigi does that too, which is kind of amazing. And then the third thing that I want to talk to him about, he's been doing eat skills for quite a while now, and he's had a more advanced journey where he's gone from not just from calorie counting to skills, but now he's gone from skills to this kind of like more like reflective insight based practice. And I want to check in with him about that for people that might be interested in like how far and how deep can you go with this. So Luigi, super hyped to talk to you. And how about to start you tell people just like a little bit about you.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Josh. And as you said, let's start from the beginning. Myself, and I think it's relevant. I'm an engineer, and I work in system safety, things that go from trains, bridges, planes, drones, all sorts of things. And at the same time, I'll go back to that why it's relevant. And then I've always been a curious mind, and I like doing a variety of activities, as you mentioned, like swimming, hiking, running, calisthenics, and bodyweight exercise in general. I've been doing this kind of training in terms of bodyweight and calisthenics for quite a while. And then at one point, I approached GMB because I liked, their way of approaching exercise. They have a martial arts background. I do have a martial arts background. I've done Chinese boxing and other things. So I thought that approach was really, really good. And then at the same time, what I was doing, I was thought about, I need to make sure that my nutrition is in check for the exercise and everything. And being a system engineer, what you do, you think, well, it's a system where calorie goes in, calorie go out, and then you have an expenditure of your exercise. So that's how it works. So you give a more scientific approach. And I've been doing this for like over years. So I always done it for maybe a number of years. Then I came off it. Then I went back to it. And then I just kept going because I always felt that the system kind of worked, but there were few flows. So from my point of view, the flow was that all my nutrition and the food that I was having was pretty much dictated by the numbers that I was seeing on the phone. So it was like the phone is telling me that I have X amount of calories that I have to eat. I'm not really hungry, but I'm going to have it anyway. And then on the other end of the spectrum, maybe you're not exercising that day, or you're not exercising enough, or you're out with people, or you can't measure things, and then everything goes to the window. And then at the same time, it's really time intensive and brain intensive because you still have to measure everything. Even if you get really good at it, you can kind of eyeball the food. It still takes time. That's why people get off it and then back on. And one thing that no one says is that even if you do calorie countings, you always are plus minus 20%. And I can tell that because my wife, she's she works in sustainability, but as a background, she's a chemist, and she worked a lot in obviously in food science and everything. And it says when what you actually see on a packet of food is pretty much there, but it's plus minus 20%. So all of these theory is still plus minus 20%, even if it looks like a precise science, but you should really be dead precise. So let's say, I won't go to dive too much into that, but let's say you have 100 gram of shrimps. Then you
Yeah.
start thinking, okay, but how much water is in that? They were half frozen, completely defrost. Okay,
Right.
that's yeah, and the same
Yeah.
goes with flour, it goes with vegetables. So when you start thinking about that, your mind just goes bang. Um, so what I've done at one point is okay, this is not sustainable. In the sense,
Well,
in the long term, it's not.
can I ask you a little bit about that?
Mm,
Like as you were so you went off it because it was like kind of tedious and time consuming, and there were other times where you said you were out or you were doing things, and like so what was it um what was the experience of that? Like was it like frustrating, or did it what was it actually like to be like going out and or like eating because you like even when you weren't hungry, what was that actually like for you?
it was well. There were two things. Well, when I was not hungry and I was eating, it felt like I was not really enjoying the food because it felt like just fuel. Because
Yeah.
even if maybe it was a nice meal, it could be, let's say, a pizza, pasta, whatever people like. I was just eating, not because I wanted it, but because I had to make the macro, the calories, and everything. And then the flip side is the sense of guilt if you are not doing, your perfect numbers, if you are having the extra cookie, uh, or let's say the extra slice of pizza, or maybe you were going out on a date or a birthday, and then there was this nice cake, and then you see it's a very nice cake, but then in the back of your mind, think, yeah, but this is like 600 calories, and now I'm above my quota for the day. So that it didn't. I was not equipped with social skills, so I was not able to eat socially and enjoy it at the same time.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Mm,
Cool. Yeah, awesome. And then as I cut you off, I think you were talking about sustainability.
mm. Yeah, no, exactly. No, it was not sustainable because you were feeling miserable because you were eating food like fuel. You had the sense of guilt, and it felt like I was not listening to my body because that there was also the other part because I was kind of fixated to a certain weight that I had to have. Say, okay, I need to weigh that much, and if I go above, then something is wrong. So I was kind of probably restricting calories in a way that well just because I picked a number that I thought it would suit me, and I thought that's the way that I should stick on.
Yeah, so I mean, I think a lot of people can relate to that, where there's this rigidity about like this calorie number, and then there's also this rigidity about this weight number, and they're both maybe a little more arbitrary than we'd want to believe, you know?
Mm,
Like we got this number from I weighed this at one point, so anyway, it's just interesting to see the just the parallel there, right? Like both were so
mm.
rigid, and both it felt like there was something wrong when you weren't right on. And so that's it's often kind of exhausting for people.
It is exhausting, and then as I say, to a certain extent, it was arbitrary. And then, as I say, when you factor in all the uncertainty, probably
Right.
you're being rigid on something that you just picked out of a cylinder. Yeah, out of a
Yeah.
bag. Yeah.
Okay.
Mm.
So then let's get to the fun part. Actually before that. So you started looking for something different, right?
Yes.
You were just looking for an alternative?
Yes. So I will. The thing is, because I said I came through GMB, and GMB gave me certain tools to approach exercise on a more sustainable way as well. Because again, one part that we didn't touch again is about the exercise. So there is an element of, okay, you have a certain routine. If you can't exercise because of work, stress, or anything, then you have the sense of guilt because you have not exercised. Going through the GMB approach, the auto-regulation, that taught me that is more important, the consistency and the quality, and don't go for perceptions, but more for excellence, and think about the consistency. So seeing that, and obviously with you at the time being closely related to GMB, I thought, well, I trust these people when it comes to exercise, and obviously there is Josh here that is talking about eating skills. So probably there is a parallelism. I can transition to a more sustainable and fun way of eating food, and then at the same time pursue my goals when it comes to physical skills. Because at the moment, a few years now, I'm more chasing the skill than the actual strength, because I think it's more fun to learn a new skill as opposed just to add numbers on a bench. But that's my perspective. That's how I approached eating skills. But at the same time, being a safety engineer, I knew that the system that I had kind of worked, even if in a broken way. So I didn't want to, on one way, I didn't want to let it go. And then at the same time, I was thinking, maybe I can use this unsustainable system to check if the new approach, the eating skills approach, it kind of works. So I can use that as a comparison to see what I get. So I didn't just say, okay, what I've done for 7 years, I'll just chuck that in the bin, and then let's try something new. I still wanted to obviously approach something different, but then at the same time, I wanted to retain for a certain period the calorie counting. I know that I'm jumping a bit ahead from that point of view, but in reality, that's what I did for a few weeks. What I've done, I was following, eating skills, but then at the same time, I was calorie counting in the sense saying, okay, I'll do what eating skills tell me that I should do in terms of approach, in terms of guideline and skills. But let's see at the end of the day how much I'm eating in terms of food and everything. And for me, what was incredible is that I was starting to enjoy more the food, to be more in the moment when I was having food, enjoying the texture, the flavor, be more present from that point of view, be better equipped if I was going out social with friends or, on a date. But in terms of calories and everything, it was it was still pretty much there, but without having to go through the whole process of, misery and exhaustion of having to count calories. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I love all that. One thing, there's something you said there that's really, really, really key. Um, and this is the difference for anyone listening to this that might want to calorie count and try out eating skills at the same time. There's one path that seems to be very successful and one path that seems to lead to failure. And the path that tends to lead to failure is when people count calories as their primary method, and then they try and tack eating skills on to that somehow. And it doesn't really, what happens is they never end up actually practicing the skills. They're kind of like playing at practicing the skills. But what you did was the opposite. You actually ate based on the skills and then use calorie counting to double check and see how that to see what happened, right? And that worked really,
Yeah.
really well.
It did because I knew that the system that I was living was broken, and I wanted to try this new approach. If I was letting the old system, let's say the calorie counting, to lead, then what would have happened? Would have happened that I was still, the sense of guilt would have been there, overeating would have been there. So you can, let's say, if the system says eat when you're not hungry because you need to eat 2,000 calories, it doesn't really matter if you pause between bites because you are still overeating because until you reach the number. But the other way around, it really worked for me because you're using the new system and you are leaving the system that for you didn't work and
Yeah.
for me didn't work.
That's that's awesome. It's so key that you were able to think about it like that. And so I'm curious. So there are a bunch of different skills and guidelines, but typically people end up finding certain ones that make a bigger difference for them. Which ones, like which skills or guidelines were the ones that made a biggest difference? Actually, this is actually I've got two questions. The first one is which skills and guidelines were the ones that made the biggest difference for you early on?
Early on, because from my background, I'm from Italy, from the south of Italy, and we tend to eat very fast. You know, we are fast eaters, and also there is the element. Okay, if the food is in your plate, you have to finish the plate and everything, no matter what. So what made a big difference for me at the beginning was a have a pause between bites, so put the fork down, effectively have a sort of mechanism to slow down, because
Yeah.
that gave me the chance to catch up with my sense of fullness, and then in terms of skill, to check if I was still hungry or not. And that made the biggest difference for me because it introduced a sense of mindfulness, sorry, in and actually check with my body and not with an app or something else if I was full or not. And that for me was really the light bulb moment. At that point, I think when I started practicing that, I said, okay, no, I'm really sold because this is really sustainable because I can really just have a plate in front of me, eat slowly, enjoy the food, enjoy the flavor, the texture, and actually just simply stop when I'm not hungry anymore. And when you say that out loud, it sounds so straightforward and so simple, and that obviously makes a big difference. If you're out eating or if you have a work lunch, you just stop eating when you don't want it anymore. Yeah.
Yeah. Was that ever was that a pretty straightforward process for you, or was it difficult at first, or
I had my challenges at the beginning because again, you getting a system, the calorie counting out of your system all in one go is not easy as I can imagine. If you do something for several years, it takes a while. And I think at the beginning, what I was doing, I was undershooting the meals quite a bit because
Mm.
I felt like, oh, this feels a bit free flow. It feels a bit that I'm doing what I want. So I think when I was judging my sense of fullness, I was undershooting and saying, okay, no, I'll stop here. But then for me, and the other thing that for me is a big it's a big difference in eating skills. It's well, the close in the name is eating skills. So you're practicing a skill. So like if you're doing a muscle up, if you're doing a handstand and everything, the more you practice, the better you get. So I always said that the confidence, thanks to yourself and the rest of the community, that by practicing more and more, then I was undershooting less and less. But then at the same time, there was what I like about the overall approach. There is no sense, oh, you eat too much, or you didn't eat enough, therefore you're snacking. You just okay, that's cool. You just misjudged your lunch, so maybe you'll have a little bit of a snack in the afternoon, and then maybe you'll have a dinner, and that's fine. I also remember that before, when I was calorie counting, I won't say eating all the time, but probably I was eating like 5 or 6 times a day. Whereas nowadays I breakfast. Normally I work out after I wait a bit, like an hour, then I do my exercise, then I have lunch, and then I have dinner. That's it, 3 meals, and then really works for me. I don't feel the sense of snacking. It does happen sometimes, but it's rare because I tend to have a balanced meal.
That's amazing. I mean, I know a lot of people have gone from like eating like 5, 6 times a day to eating like 3 times a day and have found it just like a lot more manageable. Um, but that's another one of those things where I think a lot of people wouldn't think that they could be as active and athletic as you are without having like certain snacks in there to manage it or like counting their. So like how has this all interacted with your workouts?
Well, well, it works out in twofolds. Well, we can talk about last year, for example. I did my best time ever on a 5K, on a
Nice.
10K.
Yeah.
So I know I'm 40 plus, but we can put numbers. I'm not exactly built for running, but I still managed to run 5K in 22 minutes and
Yeah, that's
a
awesome, dude.
10K in 40 odd minutes. So that was
Yeah.
good. But for me, there's also the element that, as I said, I do calisthenics, so I can
Yeah.
do a full back lever, no problem. And I've done it in the last few months. So I've been on. At that point, when I did it, I was more than a year doing it in skills. I'm still doing my front levers. I do dragon flags with weights.
Yeah.
Handstand, all these sort of skills. And so I don't feel that, well, actually, if one thing we can say, it's actually just stronger, when it comes to things like, deadlift and, deadlift, squat, these sort of things. I can easily squat more than 100 kilos, no problem. And when it comes in terms of mass, I'm actually 10 kilos heavier than before. And I think my body just naturally adjusted to the level of exercise. Then in the end, actually unlocked probably a number of skills for me, because I think I'm at my strongest that I've been in a very, very long time. I mean, when I was younger, okay, it's different, but probably I think I haven't lifted that much and I've been this strong in a very long time. So the things about, maggots and everything, I don't see that an issue. As we say, it's all about, you have a little bit of carbs, you have some proteins, whatever you want, chicken, salmon, or lentil, tofu, whatever people prefer, some vegetables, and then it just works, and I still run, swim, cycle, and this sort of thing. Yeah, at one point, what I did the last year, I did a hill race, so it was an 8 kilometers with a 400 meters elevation, pretty much in the woods. So it was not really a path; you were just climbing the side of the mountain, and then I did it in under an hour, which I found it was really good. So yeah, that's another thing that I've done, hill races. Yeah.
Was that the one that you sent me the picture of the hill?
Yes, and
It was a big hill. I might even call that a mountain.
the thing is, on the way down, because it was wet, you were just going down the side of the mountain. After 300 people
Oh,
go down, you are pretty much running downhill on nothing. There is no grass, there is no gravel. It's just you're
Yeah.
running downhill on mud. So it was really, really.
That's
I think
gnarly.
it was nuts, but it was good fun.
So what's cool is that like I mean that's another thing where there are a lot of people that might be listening going like, well, how much is he doing really? Like you've got this like really broad level of fitness where on one hand you're doing barbell work with squats and deadlifts. On the other hand, you're doing like legit bodyweight skills. And then on top of that, you've got this like endurance training. You're like the ultimate like hybrid athlete kind of training, right?
Yes.
Which is kind of amazing as an adult, right? Like
Yeah.
that, like not everyone has like a job and a life and also like um just like really legit broad fitness. So I think it's amazing that you've been able to manage that essentially like eating slowly and stopping when full and seeing how long, and like seeing if that got you to the next meal. Like that's like um it almost does sound too simple, right?
I know, but end of the day, it's about what I found afterwards. You say what about the beginning, but then
Oh yeah,
afterwards,
yeah, 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 yeah.
yeah, when you think about the values, because what we do at the beginning,
Yes.
for people that are not familiar, we pick, the values that are effectively our moral and life compass. So in terms of, family, health, mindfulness, this sort of things. And we pick that at the beginning, and then slowly, slowly. I don't want to spoil. Hopefully, I'm not spoiling things for people. But then the idea is, as you progress and you practice your skills, you come to a point that you can actually make your decision just based on your values. So at one point, you think about, okay, for me, it's all about self-care and mindfulness. So eating, just opening a box of biscuits because I'm bored and because I don't want to do this this piece of work is completely different from having a biscuit or a slice of cake that has been baked by let's say your partner, or because you are having a nice slice, overlooking a river because you're having a great time. So in that moment, you are actually really enjoying the cake because it fits with your value, because you want to feel connected with that person. So effectively, you taste the cake almost twice. Well, you enjoy the cake because it's nice, because it's a nice piece of cake, but then at the same time, it's a medium of connection to the other person. So it's effectively you get two for one.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And so that's okay. I think everyone listening would love to go from I'm eating the 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 biscuits because I saw it and I'm bored or I'm stressed out or whatever to like I'm having the cake with my friend on a great like the ability to have it when it's about like bonding and enjoyment and skip it when it's just like mindless, right?
Mm.
How, like, what advice would you give someone that's trying to get there?
Well, the thing is, in order to get there, what I'm suggesting is don't rush it, because it does take some time. If you think about that, probably the people that are listening to us, they would be, let's say, in their 30s or in their 40s or gone. So that 20, 30 years of conditioning from the society about, eating fast or eating the full meal, or that you have to look in a certain way. So if you think about that, if you've been doing something for 20, 30 years, it will take some doing in order to change your approach. We're not talking about years, but it will take it will take several weeks. My advice is take your time for the same reason that if you never lifted before, you don't just put 200 kilos on a barbell and then you squat, you start with small weights. The same thing in eating skills. So what do? You think about guidelines. So you think about just putting the fork down or wait 10 minutes before your next snack. It doesn't really matter in the end if you're having the snack or not, but the fact that you put 10 minutes, you are putting yourself in a driving seat. Say, okay, after 10 minutes, I still want it. So effectively, I'm making a conscious decision, not because I'm watching something on TV and I'm just munching something because I'm bored. So my advice is take your time, go through pick your values, go through the guidelines. And don't be afraid, because that's the other thing, is don't rush through things. Don't feel obliged that if you've done week one, the following week you have to do week two. If you want to spend a little bit more time on week one, it's okay. For the same reason, if you do an exercise, if you feel like that you're a bit shaky for the next weight, you just spend more time and you just become stronger to with another weight. I think for people that do martial arts, this makes a lot of sense, because for people that have done martial arts, we practice kata forms or punches for thousands of repetitions. So we are used to do things over and over in order to get better at it. So my advice is just to take their time. One thing that we haven't touched, but I don't know if you want to talk about it now or later, is the fact that now I'm going around a second loop. As you said, obviously you've done the course with yourself, and thanks to you now, I'm a moderator of eating skills, so I share my experience and my journey with other people. But what I wanted to do is let's see what it's like if I go back to the first session with what I know that comes afterwards and what I can get out of it. And for me, it was really it was a different experience to a certain extent, because as I said, I'm a curious mind, and with the fact that I know what's coming afterwards, puts me more in a calm state of mind, in the sense that I can really enjoying spending time on guidelines and skills, whereas before it was my eager of knowledge and everything. Let's see what's next. Let's see what's next. So I wouldn't say that I was rushing, but I was really, really eager to see what was next. Whereas at the moment, it's more about the reflections, and I know that we help people with the tracking on how many times they practice the skill, just to have an idea. But for me at the moment is less about the tracking and more about reflecting what skills or guidelines or values I'm using as opposed to others.
It's really interesting. It's really, really, really interesting, because so much of what you're saying makes so much sense if people have done certain things, and would be so counterintuitive if people haven't, right? Like the standard approach to fitness and diet is like as absolutely as fast as possible, right? Um, where what you're talking about is like deliberately slowing down and spending time with skills and guidelines, and then ultimately values, and seeing what you can get from that, and that you're actually in some ways getting more out of going slower. And I think like you're saying, if people have done martial arts, they might get that. If people have done certain bodyweight skills, they might get that. If people have done Dan John's easy strength, they might get
Yeah.
that. Where like you're like, actually, if I kind of like stay here for a while, then all of a sudden it gets way easier and I can just lift more. Like it's not how most people have approached things, but there's this alternate path where you can actually stay with something until you've learned everything you can from it and then move on, or until it's become like kind of integrated and move on. And anyway, it just really struck me as you're saying that I'm sure some people with certain like maybe coming from kettlebell or maybe coming from GMB fitness or maybe coming, like might totally get what you said, and other people might be like, what is he talking about? Um,
Yes,
so it's really cool, and it's so telling that you're like going through again slower. Just right.
yes.
That's it's kind of neat. So okay, so then I've got to ask, what's the biggest thing you've gotten like or that you found going through it the second time in a more, curious, reflective way?
I think one element is also that I always try to make a parallel. Well, you've seen it during our discussion, and in obviously since we met, I always make a parallelism between, say, the physical elements of the exercise and the nutrition. So for me, eating skills also helped me in my exercise. As I said at the beginning, the fact that you need to do a certain amount of exercise, like, you have to spend X amount of mobility and flexibility, then you have to do your strength, then you have to do your cardio. And if you don't do these, it's bad. Whereas it also helped me more in terms of thinking, okay, I'm doing this exercise, I'm really enjoying, I'm mindful when I do the exercise, but I'm not going to get too hung up if that day I'm not going to exercise, because it's all about practice and it's all about the long term. What's my objective? What I want to do? I want to be able to move around, be able to control my body in space and time. So the fact that, if I don't train for a week because I'm busy or I'm doing something else, it's not the end of the world. So I think also helped me to find the real value on from a physical perspective point of view in terms of goal. And going back, so the second time around, I think what I'm learning is more about, as I said, really enjoying and savoring, the moment, really focusing on maybe enjoying the food and just slow everything down, which is a bit like, as I said, if people that do body weight exercise, if one day you manage to do your front lever for the first time, the following time, not just to do your maximum progression all the time, you'll regress to a straddle or to an half lay because you want to build the volume. So that's why it's important, even if you come to the point, like I did, to go to a value-based decision, there will be certain element when your life gets busy and everything. So don't be afraid of going back to guidelines and skills, for the same reason that if you come from a period that you haven't moved or you haven't exercised, you don't go back to your 1 rep max, but you start doing a bit of movement or a bit of exercise, or you don't want to go back to 100 like you were before.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant. Um, 'Cause yeah, like if you're, I think if someone's been lifting long enough and they're smart about it, then they've had rough days, rough weeks where they like dialed down the weight and or the complexity, right? Maybe do like a less complex version of the exercise. Um, and just got that in, and like that was enough. And what you're saying there is really, really, really wise about how you've got this game you're playing with like making values-based choices, which you've got a lot of skill with now, but it's really cognitively demanding in the beginning. In the beginning, it can take a lot for people to actually like slow down and make a choice and think about
Yeah.
like what are my values? What does it look like in this? And like and the you're saying that even with all the skill you've got, that if you're having like a rough day or a rough week, you might just dial it back to the guidelines and skills that you started with.
Yes.
I think that's
And,
super smart.
and the other thing is that I found pleasure and joy because I go
Mhm.
in with an element of exploration, reflection, and discovery, saying, okay, let's see if by going back to a guideline, if I get more insight out of it, or if I get more of a more understanding of my value. So the thing is, when you go back, for the same reason that when you do exercise, you go back to base exercise, you might get stronger in your highest progression when you go back to, from my point of view, for example, when you slow down and you put your fork down, actually you feel more a sense of connection with the food, that an awareness that if you picked as a value, awareness actually makes you more aware. So you go from value back to guideline and then back to value again, because the guideline helped you to work and explore more of the value. It's almost like you you use the guideline as a lens or as a microscope to explore your value-based choice in a deeper sense. You use
Yeah.
that as I said, as a catalyst.
That's awesome. That is so awesome. Because yeah, it's actually like a complete system. And even at the simplest level, you're still working on the same thing as at the highest level. And so you can go back and forth and get different things out of it from different perspectives, but it's kind of all the same game, right? And
Yeah.
then the other thing that you keep saying that I also just want to highlight is you keep talking about like enjoying your food more and getting more
Yes.
like joy. And I don't think that's something that everyone associates with their nutrition plan.
No. No. If you go for, if you're trying to dial in your nutrition, everybody one thinks that I'm going to be miserable. I'll have to suffer, but that's the only way I'm going to get to the gains or the goals. But from my point of view, I've done more in the last couple of years that, and as I said, I achieved accomplishments that I wanted to achieve that I've not done before. For example, as I said, I wanted to be able to do a dragon flag or a front lever, a back lever for a long time, but I only be able to do in the last couple of years since I started using eating skills.
It's amazing. Okay, this is great. This is all I like. I think this is gonna be super helpful for people. Um, is there any last, is there anything else that like any last tips or advice or anything else that like you would tell a version of you, like an earlier version of you to help you, or like anything else you would want to pass along?
Well, well, one thing that I will definitely pass along is if you think that what you're doing is not helpful or if you think that is not sustainable, definitely there is something out there. So don't be afraid to seek for something else to change. But then at the same time, as much as people, again, I try to make parallelism to the physical elements. As people realize that if you have a personal trainer, if you have a coach, I'm talking about a good personal trainer or a coach, you'll go through things a lot faster. Doing these on your own is possible, but at the same time, it's extremely difficult. So if people join, a coaching program like the one that you have, effectively having someone else guiding you uh, allows you to go through things a lot quicker, but then at the same time gives you the support you need in order to unlock certain situation. Because maybe as much as people, as I said, you are doing the air exercise and then you realize, oh, I can't do a pistol squat, not because I'm not strong enough, but because I don't have the ankle mobility, for example, but people don't realize that.
Yeah.
For the same people, for the same time, maybe you're doing people that are doing eating skills that they don't realize oh, well, sorry, they're trying to change their diet, but they don't realize that maybe what they're doing, they're trying to solve non-food related issues with food. But until
Yeah.
someone else shows you the path, it's very, very difficult. So for people, what I suggest is if you wanted to change, definitely it is possible, it is sustainable. You don't have to count calories for the rest of your life and be miserable. You can do a lot of goals, but definitely having someone, having a coach, a person that supports you when it's needed and guides you, that is key.
Awesome. That is like we totally have to wrap it up there. And like I love the pistol squat example because that's something that I think a lot of people that have tried pistols have probably run into where it wasn't just a strength thing. Like there was this mobility thing. And if you didn't know that, you could kind of bang your head against the wall for a long time, right? So that's like such a great example. This was all great. This was all really, really, really amazing. I so appreciate
Right.
it. I've always appreciated all the work and practice you put into your own skill practice and how reflective you've been. And so it's really cool getting to see you pay that forward here. Because not only did you develop that for yourself, you also like you were able to articulate your path really sharply. This was so cool. This was so cool, and I think it's going to help a lot of people, and I totally appreciate it. So Luigi, thanks for doing this. This is great, and yeah, I mean, I guess I'll see you in eating skills.
Excellent. Yeah, no, that's great to know. Good stuff. And thanks everyone that have listened to our discussion. And by all means, if they have any question for me, or if they want, more insight or more details, obviously they're going to reach out to yourself, and maybe we'll have another session. You never know.
Awesome. Thanks, dude.